Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Charles Green. I'm part of the marketing team here at Belatrix Software. Firstly, thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join this call. For those of you not familiar with Belatrix, we are a leading provider of software development services with expertise in product and mobile application development. Our focus is on innovation and really shaping the concepts and ideas of our clients into world-class software products. We have delivery centers in Mendoza and Buenos Aires in Argentina, as well as Lima, Peru. And today we're going to be discussing augmented, virtual, and mixed reality and examining what is happening and why you should be interested in these technologies. And to do that, I'm delighted to be joined by Belatrix's Director of Client Services, Silvana Gaia. Silvana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Charles. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Silvana Gaia, and I am a software engineer. I joined Belatrix as the 9th developer, so I know the company very well. Now I work with the sales team as a technical consultant, and I use my technical background and the knowledge of Belatrix portfolio to assess our prospects and clients.
Excellent, thank you, Silvana. Now today's session is going to be very open, so if you have a question at any time, do let me know, and you can do that either by typing into the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen or via Twitter. And we'll be tweeting throughout the webinar using the hashtag BelatrixAR, so you can use this to follow the webinar and also to ask questions. But without further ado, I want to jump straight into the content. And augmented reality has recently been listed as one of the top 5 technologies that will start to change the world within the next 5 years by the research firm Forrester Research. Now, Forrester considers that the technology is going to have the same level of impact as the Internet of Things, as artificial intelligence, as cognitive computing, but that its impact is going to be felt even faster within the next 3 to 5 years. So very rapidly we'll be feeling its impact. Already this year, augmented reality and virtual reality startups have raised $658 million in equity financing, which demonstrates very concretely the attention being placed on these technologies at the moment. So we know augmented reality is going to have a big impact, but until now its adoption has been quite gradual, right, Silvana?
Yes, Charles, that's right. Augmented, virtual, and mixed reality has been around for a number of years, but they have been very slow adopted until now because of the phenomenon of Pokemon Go game. The Pokemon Go game was released in early July, and the game has outperformed all expectations. Currently, there are over 20 million daily users only in the United States. And in particular, millennials are addicted to this reality-based game. So in this webinar, we will first examine the technology behind this game and the distinction of 3 different types of reality: augmented, virtual, and mixed. Also, we will discuss a bit more about Pokemon Go game and what we can expect in the future for gaming. Then we will talk about some other implementations of VR and AR beyond gaming. In this section, we will describe a Belatrix case study of Latin America's pioneer in mobile payment and mobile banking. Also, we will describe the main components of the systems, both hardware and software. We will talk about what is being done by big companies on this subject, and review a report of compiled responses from professionals that are currently developing applications in this area. And last but not least, we will discuss about how to get started with AR and VR. So we have a lot of content, so why don't we start with the first part, the definitions. The term augmented reality is often confused with virtual or mixed reality. It's important to understand the difference between the terms. Augmented reality involves a real-time view of the physical world around us, which is improved with digital information. Virtual reality involves creating a whole simulated world rather than the actual world around us. In the case of mixed reality, it combines aspects from AR and VR. As you can see in the screen, on one side we have a real environment, and on the other side you have the complete virtual reality, and in the middle you have augmented and mixed reality. We can illustrate this distinction with some samples. For example, one example of augmented reality, we can see it in the Iron Man movie. Tony Stark uses a helmet with a heads-up display that has the capability to add information about locked-on objects. As you can see in the screen, this is Santa Monica Ferris wheel, and there is information added in the screen. Secondly, an example of virtual reality. There is a sophisticated virtual reality system called CRVS that is owned by the aerospace company Boeing. It simulates a flying experience while the pilot stays on the ground. So the environment is fully created by the system. This is part also of a new concept called immersive education. As you may probably know, Google has launched a Google Cardboard that is a VR platform for use with a fold-out cardboard mount for a mobile phone. This was intended to be a low-cost system that is accessible to more people. They have also implemented an immersive education program to provide VR experience to school classrooms through Google Cardboard viewers. So they allow teachers to take their students on virtual field trips. Thirdly, we have mixed reality. This is illustrated with Microsoft HoloLens. As you can see in the screen, you can use it to play Minecraft in your own room. So, and of course, another example of mixed reality is the recently released Pokemon Go game.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Silvana. And I'm sure everyone on the call today is familiar with Pokemon Go, the free-to-play, location-based mobile game which is available on iOS and Android. And I'm sure you've seen people leaving their homes and playing in parks and streets as they try to collect Pokemon. And of course, some part of their success has been fueled by millennials because it's brought together their childhood nostalgia of playing with Pokemon, and it combines it with their love of technology. But for me, what is really fascinating about the success of Pokemon Go is that it's brought about the fact that augmented reality has now become a mainstream technology that businesses cannot avoid. Consumers are now aware of the technology, they like it, they want to use it, they've seen how they can use it. And the game has really worked well to teach people about the technology. And what that means is that there is a shift from the past where augmented reality was limited to very specific use cases, in many cases very isolated use cases which didn't really have broad applications. And it was difficult for companies and executives to really imagine how they could use the technology. But Pokemon Go, with its huge success, has changed this. And it's going to make it much easier for people to argue for investment in augmented reality related training, for product investment, and investing in that new prototype to see how consumers will respond. And so based on the success of Pokemon Go, I think we're going to start to see a much faster adoption of augmented reality, but also virtual reality and mixed reality applications and products in the future. So, Savannah, how did Pokemon come about, and how successful actually was it?
Well, as you may probably know, Niantic Lab is the company that built the game with the collaboration of Nintendo. This startup was formed inside Google, but spun out on its own in October 2015 when Google created Alphabet. At that moment, Google decided to invest in Magic Leap instead of investing in Niantic Lab. What is really interesting is that the idea of the game was originated inside Google as an April Fool's joke. Google's annual prank 2 years ago involved integrating a Pokemon challenge into its map feature. The promotional video explained the most rigorous test known to man to find the world's best Pokemaster. So that is really interesting. And also, we can take a look at some statistics about the game. SurveyMonkey conducted a survey, and it appears that downloads might finally have hit its peak number of users on July. So to reach this conclusion, the company looked at 3 different data sets: daily active users, downloads, and Google search frequency. As you can see in the graph, the app also is affected by normal app usage trends. The peak was over 25 million active users, and now there are just over 20 million. Of course, this is a huge number of users. And also, we should take in mind that it only counts US users, and this app has recently been launched in Japan. So it is unlikely that it will lose popularity very soon. Another way to see it is to take a look at Google search. They had compared some term search like Trump, Taylor Swift, and Battlefield. And you can see that in the past 30 days, Pokemon Go game is still the most common search term in the graph. So now we can talk about more implementations of AR and VR beyond gaming. For example, in healthcare, this industry has been a big adopter of virtual reality. They use computer-generated images for diagnosis and treatment. Nowadays, there is a software available to create virtual reality simulations of the patient's body, so doctors can practice different surgical options on it. So that's really useful. On retailing, we can see that, for example, there is a VR online shopping app that provides you with a virtual tour of an entire store. So instead of looking through catalogs on a website, shoppers can get a real-time shopping experience and even shop with their friends. Also, for example, you can use some existing platforms like LiveRoom, which provide an augmented reality platform as a service. So at very low cost, retailers can now implement an AR solution. On the financial industry, we can talk about a case study that Belatrix implemented. Our customer offer customized solutions to top financial groups and corporations that enable over 5 million monthly active users to execute over 30 million transactions. They were looking to improve their mobile user experience using augmented reality. So Belatrix team implemented an augmented reality map to help users easily locate nearby ATMs simply by using their phone cameras. So the app combines a live view of a street with location-based services, and the nearest ATM is indicated on the screen based on the direction of the phone is pointing. So now we will talk about the main components of an AR and a VR system. In the case of AR system, you have a display. It takes the real-world information and transmits it into the augmented reality software. You have the camera that takes real-world information and transmits it into the augmented reality software. And in the display, you provide a summary of this real and virtual reality. The software will transform real data into augmented data. That information must be situated into a coordinate system. And then you have the markers that are symbols that the software is able to interpret and provide a specific response. In this case, we have to make a distinction also between marker-based versus markerless AR. In a marker-based AR application, the images are provided beforehand. So in this case, you know exactly what the application should recognize using the camera. Most of the nowadays applications are dealing with image recognition and are marker-based apps. And that's why, because it is much more simple to detect things that are hard-coded in your app. Usually, it is a marker. A marker is a black and white square image, and it doesn't need a lot of processing power on the end user device to perform the recognition. On the other hand, a markerless AR application recognizes images that were not provided for the application beforehand. So you can imagine that this scenario is much more difficult to implement because you need a very complex recognition algorithm running on your application that should identify patterns, colors, or some other features that may exist in camera frames. For example, if your algorithm is able to identify dogs, it means that the AR application will be able to trigger actions whenever a dog is detected, but you won't be providing with all the dogs' images in the world to the database. So you can imagine that it is more complex.
Absolutely. Sorry, Savannah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the case of VR headset, we have here a different software and hardware.
Yeah, absolutely, and I just want to add to that you know, with regard to if you are looking at a virtual reality solution, you know, there is a wide variety of virtual reality headsets. Some companies have bet on those virtual reality headsets with the high performance and tracking capabilities, while others are looking to be using more powerful smartphones, which power inexpensive virtual reality headsets. So you've got this very diverse market. You've got Oculus Rift and Samsung being some of the better known headsets, but actually the market, as mentioned, is much more diverse. There are more smaller developers of virtual reality headsets, and there's quite a high likelihood that they may well overtake their better known competitors. And indeed, a recent study by Lux Research, for example, showed that out of 22 virtual reality headsets, Oculus Rift continued to be ranked top, but that emerging devices such as the Sulong Q and the Star VR were on the verge of gaining the lead. Similarly, across 65 smartphone-based virtual reality headsets, the Samsung Gear still grabbed the most attention, but was overshadowed in the ease of use by the Pinch VR system and in display by Freefly VR system. And Savannah, I believe we can see here a comparison of the top virtual reality headsets from Amazon.
Yes, you can see in the screen this comparison. The first three, the HTC Vive, it is from Valve company. The second one is Oculus Rift from Facebook, and the PlayStation VR from Sony. These three first devices are high-performance headsets that require PCs and graphic cards to run. They have high resolution and refresh rates, and they provide wider experiences such as standing VR, positional tracking, room scaling, room scale VR, and different experiences. The other two, the ones from Samsung and I can see this, and Google, they are inexpensive, but they provide only seated VR experience. So we can discuss about the initiatives of each big companies on this area. These large tech companies are betting on a variety of strategies for deploying VR and AR. So as you could see in the previous chart, some are using powerful devices, and some others are using inexpensive devices that are powered by smartphones. We will start with Apple. Tim Cook, that is Apple's CEO, declares augmented reality a core technology for the company. He favors augmented reality over virtual reality and suggested that the emerging technology may be more commercially viable because it allows users to be more present. Apple has made a number of acquisitions, including Metaio, that is a German virtual reality company, Flyby Media, which helps smartphones to identify objects in the real world. Also, FaceShift, a facial recognition company. And all these companies, technologies, may be more likely applied to smartphones and transparent displays, which suggests a smartphone AR/VR is a focus for the company.
Absolutely, and similar to Apple, we're now going to look at Google. And behind closed outdoors, Google has arguably been much more interested in augmented reality, taking a similar strategy to Apple. But at the same time, Google has been betting on virtual reality from different angles. You have Magic Leap, you've got Google Cardboard, which is very well known, and a bit more business orientated there, Google Glass, although that hasn't been tremendously successful. So while virtual reality is not really arguably the end goal for the company, augmented reality is. And Project Tango is Google's augmented reality initiative, and that uses real-time mapping technology paired with a complex set of cameras and sensors to map the 3D space around users in real time. It involves motion tracking, area learning, and depth perception. And what we're going to be expecting in the future is that Google is expected to announce plans soon for its mobile virtual reality content platform called Daydream, in addition to its low-end cardboard mobile virtual reality initiative, and retooling Android OS to handle virtual reality. So it's a lot of initiatives in play at the moment for Google. Also, they're reportedly working on a standalone headset that would not require a tether to a PC or a game console. So some exciting moves from Google as well.
Great. In the case of Facebook, in its F8 last conference, Facebook showed its current map for the next 10 years. Interestingly, the company mentioned plans for augmented reality when so far it is only focused on virtual reality with its Oculus products. The company said future headsets should be the size of a normal pair of glasses and would be able to handle augmented and virtual reality at the same time. Michael Abrash, a chief scientist from Oculus, said that the movie The Matrix provides the best sense of what virtual reality could someday be like. He said that virtual reality done right can be observed as reality.
And looking at another company, moving on from Facebook, looking at another company, that's an unusual one for our list, but that's HTC, obviously clearly better known for its Android and Windows smartphones. But they have been investing in virtual reality. For example, they've developed a headset which is powered by a high-performance PC, and it's really targeted at gamers. It employs laser sensors on the outside of the headset that enables users to traverse a space much larger than other VR systems, and then it allows users to engage much more kind of room scale sort gameplay, whereas other headsets require sitting or standing in one place. The company HTC says that its strategic partnership with Valve, this is the gaming house known for Half-Life, gives it an edge in developing the all-important content. And actually a recent survey found that developers prefer working on top of the Vive's platform over the Oculus.
Okay, and Sony will release in October of this year their new PlayStation VR, a high-end gaming VR headset that will compete with the Vive and the Rift. PlayStation is listed as a lower price than its rivals and runs atop the relatively inexpensive PlayStation 4 console. Anyway, it will require the purchase of additional cameras and controllers. So it will become one of the best selling of the major video games consoles. Also, retailers like Best Buy are betting big on their VR platform by offering in-stores demos.
And last but not least, one of the companies which we analyzed is Microsoft. And Microsoft has been making a lot of moves in the space, and they've developed the standalone augmented reality headset HoloLens. HoloLens runs Windows 10 and has become available for developers this year, back in March, but for a very hefty fee, for $3,000. And Microsoft has yet to say when it's going to become available for widespread consumer release. Now, HoloLens has taken a slightly different approach, particularly in comparison, for example, to Sony, which we just looked at, in the sense that it's targeting enterprise applications, and it has a commercial partnership, for example, with Volvo, which sees potential applications in auto product development, and of course as a way of selling cars through realistic digital test drives. So you can imagine going to a Volvo dealership, for example, and first test driving a car in virtual reality before actually deciding which car you want to step into. Microsoft has also started shipping the virtual reality version of Minecraft for the Oculus Rift in April. It's also formed a partnership with Autodesk for facilitating industrial design and 3D design. And more recently, Microsoft has partnered with Intel on Project Alloy, and this is for an untethered virtual reality headset that can track hand gestures in a merged reality experience where one's movements interact with the environment. So we've seen that all of these major companies are investing heavily in augmented and virtual reality. But of course, to be successful, you need to also have developer interest. And Savannah, I think you can tell us a little bit about what are the key platforms that developers are interested in.
Yes, it's very interesting to understand the developer's perspective on this area. So we will take a look at a report that was done by UVM Game Network. That company is the producer of the Virtual Reality Developers Conference, and they had compiled responses from more than 500 professionals that are currently working in VR and AR platforms. So let's get a glimpse on those findings. The first question is, which VR, AR platforms are you developing for right now? As you can see, more than 50% of professionals are favoring a few key companies over tech giants, including Microsoft, Sony, and Google. The other question is, will developers be working exclusively with specific companies? Almost 80% of respondents do not plan on their next game being platform exclusive. So they would like to work with different platforms for the same app. Talking about its investment, who is paying for it all? The report found that nearly 50% of developers are paying out of their own pockets for projects. Some of them have fundings from their own companies, and also in some other cases, clients, angel investors, and venture capital are investing on these applications. Another simple question is that if VR, AR is here to stay. So, of course, almost everyone answered that yes, the industry is here to stay. However, there is a remaining of 4% of respondents who disagree based on potential challenges that has the technology. So the next question is, what are the challenges ahead? The main topic they mentioned is about nausea. Nausea inducing VR AR experiences are very common common concerns between professionals, because they might turn away folks who might otherwise be intrigued by the technology. Talking about pricing, developers are concerned that the most cutting-edge VR AR technologies might be out of most consumers' price ranges. And also, there are some tech and design obstacles in relation to preventing motion sicknesses for users, as well as overcoming locomotion barriers. So, as a conclusion, we may say that AR is more viable for mass market adoption that rather than VR, since it can be done with phones, as for example Pokemon Go. Also in the VR area, if Sony's PlayStation VR takes off, it could shape the future of technology in gaming specifically. Also, they asked about the best examples of VR and AR right now. They mentioned Budget Cats, that is a game with innovative teleporting mechanics. Tilt Brush, that is an amazing VR room-scale 3D painting app. Of course, the worldwide phenomenon AR game, Pokemon Go. And they mentioned Microsoft HoloLens as an AR technology.
Excellent, thank you, Savannah. I think moving on from this, part I want to address now in the presentation is looking at the business case for augmented reality. So far in the presentation, we've seen some of the possibilities with augmented and virtual reality. We've seen the rapid consumer acceptance of augmented reality via Pokemon Go. And we've seen that many leading businesses have already started investigating. You've got also the interest from developers. And as Savannah mentioned, Belatrix has been at the forefront of this, also in implementing augmented reality for some of our customers. But stepping back and to examine the business case, it's also important to understand the environment in which you're operating. Now, according to Forrester Research, consumers have radically changed in the last 3 years. They've changed in 5 key ways. Firstly, that they are way more experimental. They're willing to adopt technology much faster than in the past. And as we've seen with the adoption of Pokemon Go, adoption happened almost overnight. And we've seen this happen with countless other technologies as well. Secondly, that consumers are inextricably tied to their digital device. Just imagine, when was the last time you didn't have your cell phone with you, or how uncomfortable would you feel if I asked you to unlock your phone and give it to a colleague, even if it was just for a few seconds. Thirdly, that consumers are continually combining the physical and the digital worlds, that more and more there is a blurring between them. Think about what is happening with the Internet of Things and companies like Disney. For example, when you go to one of Disney's parks, you receive a magic band, and that means they can track where you are, and they can prepare each ride for you in advance for when you're there. So it's this combining physical and digital. Fourthly, consumers are information junkies. They're consuming more and more content every year. And finally, it's all about them. They want to get direct, immediate gratification. The user experience and the overall customer experience is critically important to get their loyalty. And what that means is that there's huge pent-up demand for new services which incorporate new technologies and provide great experiences. And that's exactly what we saw with Pokemon Go. So how do you get started with AR and VR? And so based on our experience implementing augmented reality solutions for our clients, we suggest taking a 4-step approach to this. And we suggest considering, to start with, you should analyze your customers and what you want to achieve and make a decision on which technology augmented, virtual, or mixed reality will be the most appropriate. For a virtual reality solution, this means your customers will need to have the technology, such as a headset, whereas augmented reality can be more easily applied using existing technologies and a smartphone. Consider that a virtual reality may provide a more immersive and powerful experience, but there is going to be a bigger barrier to adoption. And secondly, consider how your customers are going to use the solution. For example, if you are a retailer, will the customer use the solution in the store or at home? If they're going to be in the store, maybe they can wear a virtual reality headset provided by you. But if you expect someone to use the solution more widely, then augmented reality may be the better bet, as fewer people own a virtual reality headset at the moment. And as we saw earlier, the price point is still prohibitive for many people. Thirdly, decide if you want to build your own or implement an existing augmented or virtual reality solution. Given the attention on the industry, there are more and more startups and product vendors offering off-the-shelf solutions. As Silvana mentioned, Live Rooms is one such example in the retail space, which means at a very low cost, you can implement augmented reality. And finally, whatever you decide to do, make sure to measure and track customer engagement. This is still new technology, and it's not always clear how consumers are going to use the solutions you develop, or maybe they will start using it in ways in which you hadn't quite imagined. And so by tracking the engagement with the technology, you can determine whether it is creating value for your business. So we've covered a lot of ground in this presentation. I want to pass over to Silvana for some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Charles. So let's see a little summary about what we had accomplished today. We've reviewed the definition of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. We illustrated them with some examples, including Pokemon Go game. Also, we talk about more implementations of AR, VR, tech beyond gaming. In that case, we talk about a Belatrix case study of AR application. We explain the main components of the system, including both hardware and software. Also, we talk about the initiatives of big companies as Apple, Google, Facebook. Also, we review a report from the developer's perspective, and we talk about the business case for augmented reality and how to get started with it. So, as you can see, this is not sci-fi anymore. With huge investments from all industries, we should expect to see AR, VR, and mixed R more commonly in our everyday lives. The success of Pokemon Go game demonstrated how willing consumers are to try new technologies and how fast they will adopt them. The game has also changed user expectations of what information is presented and how it is accessed. Very soon, visitors at museums will demand to know everything about the exhibit's installations, far beyond what's posted on the walls. And people may no longer have the patience to wait outside fitting rooms at retailers, but could opt for an immediate AR fitting trial. So it will be this shift in public expectations that nudges companies from all sectors to aggressively invest in AR.
One of two ways. Either you can do that in the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or via using the hashtag BelatrixAR. We'll just give it a few minutes see if any questions come in. So I think I may have had some connection problems there. Just to repeat, if you do have, we're now opening up for questions. If you do have any questions, please do let us know, and you can do that either via the chat box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or via Twitter using the hashtag BelatrixAR. And I see we have one question already which has come in, and that is, can you tell us a bit more about the work that Belatrix has done with augmented reality? What was the platform that you implemented?
Well, Belatrix developed an IR application for mobile banking and mobile payment. The backend was done with JavaStack, and also the mobile applications were developed with iOS and Android native. For implementing augmented reality, we used a tool called ARKit in the case of iOS. And for Android, we used the platform called Beyond AR. The application that we wrote takes the user's current position and identify nearby point of interest. You will add these points of interest to a map view and display them so they overlap with the camera view. That's mainly what we did.
Okay, great. Thanks, Savannah. See if any more questions come in. Just give it a few minutes. And I see we have one more question, which has just come in via the chat box, and that is, what other platforms are you aware of, or are you using at Belatrix?
Okay. Well, of course, there are a lot of different platforms for development. Personally, I've been playing a little bit with Vuforia, that is an augmented reality SDK. You can use it to create native applications with Android Studio or Xcode or Unity cross-platform game engine. That is one that I know. The other one is one used for iOS that is called AR Toolkit. That the good thing is that it is an open source platform. Also for Android, there is a mobile location-based augmented reality framework that is called Droid AR.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Savannah. And actually, we have just had a question come in which is very closely linked to what you were just discussing, and that is, what are some examples of augmented reality providers or startups that clients could consider leveraging? And I know we mentioned in the presentation. I'll take a stab at that. Maybe Savannah, you want to jump in if I miss anything. But for example, in the presentation, we mentioned Liveroom as being one such company which can provide this kind of augmented platform as a service solution, which can be useful, particularly if you're in the retail sector. There are other companies such as 8Motions, for example. They help with localization and augmented reality. There are a huge number. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but as you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that there has been a huge amount of investment in virtual and augmented reality startups over the past year. So it is a very hot space. I believe there's also, for example, Magic Leap, which we mentioned also in the presentation, which raised, I think, close to $1 billion in a round of funding earlier this year. So, are there any other companies that perhaps we haven't mentioned that you think we should mention?
Yes, right now I can think of Liveroom that we mentioned on retailing, and also Vuforia. I know they have a way to publish content where you can add markers and and create virtual objects on your document. So there are a lot of different startups. Of course, based on your requirements, you will need to find the best one. And also, you should have in mind pricing and availability of the tools.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Let's see if any other further questions come in. But I think we are getting close to the top of the hour now. I don't see any further questions at this time. If anything does come up to our audience members, then please do feel free to reach out to us. On the next slide, I think we have our contact details for both myself and Silvana. So if any questions do come to you, please do reach out to us. As I hope you could tell from the presentation that we are very passionate about new technologies and how you can use new technologies. So we are always delighted to discuss that with prospects, with customers, and with the broader technology community. Silvana, do you have any final comments you want to leave the audience with?
I would like to thank the audience for their time, and if you have any other question, please, you can email me on the email that is shown at the screen.
Excellent. And with that, I think we can draw the presentation to a close. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. A recording will be available within the next 24 hours. But with that, I would say thank you and have a good rest of the day.